Uh, just one housekeeping item is, let us make this as interactive as possible. We've got 90 minutes. And if I'm going to be talking for 90 minutes, then I think I'm going to bore you to death. So uh, let's make this interactive. I will present, but I think questions, thoughts, feel free to jump in. And I'm sure you're all veterans here. You all know what presuppositions are, how it is used in our daily life and in client sessions, right? So let's make this as interactive as possible. And if need be, we can break out into, if we have enough participants, then we can break out into breakout rooms and to have a couple of discussions there too. Yeah, okay, I got it. Great. So I think, okay, well, we can get started. I'm guessing. So, presupposition is an interesting tool, if you will, is an interesting linguistic model or linguistic way of taking an SF session forward. But presupposition, as you might know, is present in any conversation that we have, and not just SF, right? It need not necessarily be just solution-focused conversations. Any conversation has presuppositions to it. What in layman terms we call as judgment or presumptions. But how we use presuppositions and its power to co-construct a very optimistic transformation, eliciting transformation conversations is how what is where the power of presupposition lies, right? So to start with, I come from the Elliott Connie school of thought, so I start with thank you. It's a good practice that I have picked up from him. So yes, thank you. I'm sure there were other interesting sessions that you could have attended, but you chose to be here. So thank you to all for being here with me. And I hope to make this as interesting as possible. Now, going by SF tradition or SF session traditions, this is going to be the agenda to understand what presuppositions are, the types, benefits, how it creates differences, right? And what is presuppositional questions, what is not presuppositional questions, and how it helps, the benefit, and how it helps in co-constructing client conversations, right? Client descriptions, as we call it. And so what I want to know is, will you be pleased at the end of this session? Would you be pleased if we were able to cover all this and have a better understanding or reiteration of what we already understand from a presupposition standpoint? You could say yes, or you could type in yes in the chat. Either way should be helpful.
Yes.
Okay, wonderful. Thank you. So, as I said, the agenda is to see what presuppositions are, right? Or the types are, how it impacts or the kind of benefit it brings about, not for the therapist and for the clients, right? Differences in the questions and co-constructing a client session. Now, when we look at any concept, any model, right, we always try to answer it from a 5W1H standpoint. Right? It's a time-tested way of dealing with any statement, any problem or any statement that comes our way, scientifically, if you will. So when I started to put together this presentation, and this was in fact a year and a half back, because that is when I put this together for a conference that happened here in so by the way, I'm in India, so there was an SF conference that happened here, and that was the first time that I put this presentation together. I thought it was important to tackle it, right, if you will, from 5W1H standpoint, because it then tries to pull apart what presupposition is and gives a better understanding And like back in the day, I did it for students, predominantly students, because it was a conference that was led by students. But then for the purposes of this conference, when I looked back at the presentation, I thought it still holds true. I mean, I know I'll be talking to veterans, so I'll be talking to more experienced people, but it's still the model still holds true. So what is presupposition, right? I mean, it is and now we all know that SF, solution focused conversations is a very language oriented model, right? And we time and again say that we got to use client's language in sessions, and because language creates reality, right? It's a link. So SF itself is a very linguistic approach, and presupposition within it is a linguistic tool, right? Which presumes that the client comes in knowing what they want. It might elicit immediately, or it might need some digging from the clinician's standpoint, from the clinician. But either way, we presume that the client knows what they want. They come in with a change in mind, with a transformation in mind, however blurred it might be at that point when they come in, right? So the best example of presuppositional question is the very first question that we ask in a session. What are your best hopes? How would you know that at the end of the session, it was worth your time? How would you know that the conversation was helpful? And presupposition starts right there in a client's in a session. And not just that, I think presuppositions or presumptions are spread across our conversations. It might be with not just with our clients, but with our friends, family, colleagues, whoever we get in touch with. It's just that the intensity might change, the meaning of questions might change, the statements might change, but presupposition is spread all across. Now, how do we use it? Right? We use it across. Again, as I said, typically when we do an SF session, and I do come across this quite a bit. There's this feeling inside me that SF is quite repetitive, right? And it sometimes does give me the feeling that I'm repeating myself. But that is the beauty. That is also the beauty of the modality, right? Because we are repeating questions with client language. So pardon me throughout the session if you feel that, hey, you are repeating yourself, but that is SF for you, right? Yes, Laura, were you able to say something?
No.
Okay.
Just moving around.
Okay. So how do we use it? We use it by asking questions that use the client's language. It could be the language of strength, resilience, their past success, or the description of their future, the change, the transformation that you're looking for. So that is how we use presuppositions. But more importantly, why? Why do we use it? Because it helps from a therapist standpoint. It helps us to see the best version of the client. They might come in at a time when they are not at their best, but it helps us. A presupposition helps us gracefully judge. Right? As once Dr. Adam Frower told me when I asked him about the human tendency of judging, right? We are all human beings, and whether we are therapists or not, it is human tendency to judge. So if we have to judge, then might as well be gracefully judge people. Judge our clients and people around us by their best days, by their best version, by their success, right? And not by the problems. So that is where presupposition really holds the key, right? And that is why we use it, because it, as therapists, it gives us the freedom to look at our clients with a lens of what we call resilience and strength, right? And and thus it helps us ask our clients questions that will direct them, lead them to viewing themselves differently, because that's the whole idea of SF questions to start with, right? So yeah, who uses it and when and where? We're going to be talking about this through the session today, like across 90, we have 90 minutes. So we use it. Yes, predominantly the therapists use it. It's a job to presuppose clients, uh, the clients wish to change, wish to make positive and optimistic changes to their life, transformation in their life, right? And it we are obliged by presupposing clients' strengths. We are we give our clients that opening to view themselves from that lens of strength, of past success, of the ability that they already have to make those changes that they are looking for, right? Because many times as human beings, when we have a problem and we view those problems so close to our eyes that it closes out all other options. I mean, typically, I'm sure many of you have dealt with, um, handled suicide ideation or suicidal clients, because for them, at that moment in time, suicide is the only solution or the only way out, because the problem is so close to them. So presupposing gives us the opportunity to give, it helps us, it gives us the opportunity to give the client the opportunity to look at their life differently, from a different lens. It expands possibility. And when and where, as you know, we use it across the conversation, across as many sessions we might have, we use it everywhere. Now, before I move, questions, thoughts, anything that you would like to add? Okay. Okay. Looks like I'm doing a good job till now. Fine. So this is something that I picked up from a video that Adam had put out in YouTube as part of his series sometime back. I think it's been a year and a half or more than that. The different types of presuppositions, like and as you can see, and I'll share this deck with whoever would like, or I will anyway be sharing this deck with the admin of SF24, so you can have a look and you can read through it. But so I'm not going to really take a lot of time on it, but the types of presuppositional questions, right from using the therapist's own language to ask the client's best hopes, because right off the bat, when the client is in the office, they haven't spoken, they haven't opened up, we ask them that best hopes question, and that's a direct presuppositional question, any variation of it, right? I know the story of Elliot using around 106 variations of best hopes with one of his clients. So because the client kept saying, I don't know. So he had to keep asking it in different ways. But that's a direct presuppositional question where we are asking the client, where do you want to go? The taxis, the story of a taxi driver, right? We are not, we are not asking, where are you coming from? We are asking, where would you like to go? So what are your best hopes? How would you know the session the session would have helped you, right? Or even from the time you set up the appointment to today, what kind of changes have you already come across? We don't need clients' language. We directly ask that question. And then the redirecting question is where we use client's language, because the client has readily given a problem statement. We all have seen that, right? We ask, what are your best hopes? How would you know this session was helpful? and the client is ready to tell us the problem. The client has come in to pour out. The client has come in with a problem statement, that is bugging them, right? And it's also natural because no one has asked them, what are your best hopes, or what are you trying to accomplish? Instead, the question is always, what brings you here? And the client is ready to pour out all the problems. So redirecting question is one of my favorite words in the SF language. In fact, Anna Francis had recently put out a video about this word, instead. A very powerful word within the SF language, right? It's a linguistically powerful word because it completely turns the session around. Client comes in with a problem statement. Oh, I'm not happy. Oh, I'm sad. I'm defeated. I have had a trauma. I'm not able to face life. I have relationship issues, and we turn the session around by asking, instead, what would you like? What would you like to have? Rather, what would you like to have? So that's a redirecting question. And then we continuously ask continuous presupposition is the difference, typically the difference question. So what difference does it make? Because as we have also seen that there's a difference between goal and outcome. So typically, to me, goal is the immediate action that someone takes on their journey towards a long-term outcome that they are looking for, right? So the best hopes or desired outcome is something that they are looking for, is like a way of their, what do you call, as we call it, the internal state of mind, this state, the way the life transforms. And goals are the actions that clients take towards achieving that desired outcome, that long-term outcome. So we always ask that difference question when someone says, I want to be happy. Okay, what difference would that make to you? And that is continuously using clients' language in presupposing their need for the desired outcome. And conditional, again, is probably sometimes hypothetical. Now, when the conference started, we saw a video of Insu asking that miracle question. Now, a miracle is a typical example of hypothesizing a situation, right? An outcome of something that has happened without the knowledge of it having happened, and then eliciting language of what would change or what the clients would start noticing while that miracle has happened or that change has happened. So those are the types of presuppositions. Again, how are we doing till now? Questions, thoughts? We have enough time. Looks like I'm like running away. We still have an hour to go. So yeah, questions and thoughts, absolutely. Okay. Now, there are questions that are non-presuppositional or are presuppositional in an adverse way. It could be both, right? Every question that, and so it means that when there are questions that are not necessarily presuppositional in nature, we got to turn it around and make it in such a way that it adds value to the client session or the client's life, or towards it adds value to the desired outcome that the client is looking for. So the best example of a non-presuppositional question or a presumptuous presuppositional question that is of that doesn't bring in the right result is, what brings you here today, right? The traditional standard question that we therapists ask if we were following the traditional modalities. Instead, we ask, what are your best hopes? So we are presupposing that the client has a best hope, right? I was attending this as part of the Europe's zone of the conference. I was sitting on this session by Aisha Adil about silence in sessions and how silence is being used, how she uses silence, and especially in clients where there is a lot of trauma and where clients don't want to open up, right? Even in silence. And the thought that struck me as I listened to her and another person talk was, even in silence, we are presupposing that the client has answers to our questions. It's just that they are not yet probably ready to open up. But you give them a pen and a paper and ask them, what are your best hopes from our conversation? And they might write down. That gives them the space to open up, write down what they really want. It could be individual, it could be as a group, but it gives them the opportunity to open up and say, this is my best hope, or this is what I'm looking for. This is the change that I want in my life. This is how I want my life to transform, even a wee bit, even if it is like the starting, right? The starting point of a change that happens. It gives them the space to open up and express, put words to their thought to say, this is what I'm looking for. It could be verbal or non-verbal, but we are still presupposing that they have the answer to it. Again, it could be coping questions, I mean, what we call as resources, the past success, what they're doing in the skills and what we call skills and talent that they use in their everyday life. As we typically like to say, the details are in the mundane, right? So we are presupposing that in the mundane details of their life, in the mundane stuff that they do on a daily basis, clients have the answers that they are looking for. And we are presupposing that the clients have those answers. Now, I'm not a big fan of scales, especially in SF. How many of you like scale, by the way? Anyone who likes scaling 1 to 10? Okay.
I haven't used them, but I think they could be very useful.
Yeah.
Love scales.
Okay.
I'm working in school and it works really wonderfully. Yeah. So yeah.
Okay. So how does it help you? I mean, especially from presupposing standpoint, how does scaling help you? I mean, any
Yeah.
setup that you might be in.
For me, what I would say is like, to bring the change, to visualize the scale, like, where do you stand right now? It's not too low, it's not too high. And, there is something that we can look up to where we really need to work to. So having a proper scale, it can be like, something that I do on the floor, like a scale that the students can visualize sort of thing. It really helps a lot with the students.
Okay. Yeah. Because again, even on a scale, right, we are presupposing that they already are at a certain place. We are presupposing that the desired outcome, the best hopes, is already present in their life.
Yeah, when we visualize the scale, we would say like, 10 is this and, 0 is the other end of it. And we know we are not at 0 because we are doing this thing already. And, we are much bigger. So we have done a lot of things. So again, it gives them confidence. Yes, I've done these things to be at a higher place. So that gives them like, wow, yeah, I'm not bad. Good. That sort of feeling.
Right. Yes. So, and the question that we ask in SF, as you know, is we are asking like on a scale of 1 to 10, from your desired outcome standpoint, like if 10 was like absolute best and 1 was like the farthest, where are you today? And I believe research says that the common answer is 3 or probably 4. And let's say the client says 4, and we are again presupposing, say, asking what makes it 4 and not a 3 or a 2 or a 0. It means change is continuously happening. The client, we are presupposing that the client is already moving in the direction, even if it is a wee bit, even if it is a small step, half a step towards the desired outcome, right? We are presupposing that the client is moving. And then we elicit those what do you call things that they are doing that is keeping them on the right track, or the track that is right for them. Not necessarily right track, but the track that is right for them. I think that's the difference. Because when you say right track, it could be the therapist's right track, but it doesn't matter. It is the track that is right for the client that matters. Again, so we are, so for instance, yesterday, I mean, when the conference started, we saw, I don't know how many of you were there in the Oceania phase when the conference started. We started with a video of Insu working with a boy, I believe a school boy. And he had picked up math and algebra 2 in school. And probably this is SF 1.0. Maybe many of you who have practiced SF for a long time know 1.0 and probably the difference with 2.0 and how it has evolved. But Insu said that, hey, you seem to be a smart person. Now, that's a presupposition, but that's more like a direct presupposition, direct compliment or praise that you give the client. And human tendency is to shoo away the compliment. You tell someone that, hey, you seem to be a smart person, and the immediate response is, oh no, I don't think I'm smart. Someone gives me a compliment and I'm still very bad at taking compliment. I just don't know how to react. I give a sheepish thank you. I mean, I should be proud, but I still take that, very sheepishly. So instead, what we do is we presuppose the skill, the talent, the resource that, or the trait that the client has, and we turn it around into a question. We ask them like, how do you know that you're strong enough that you could achieve your desired outcome? How do you know that you're smart enough? When did you realize, or who else has told you that, hey, you are smart enough that you could achieve this, right? And there could be variations of that question that then gets the client to talk, right? Talk about how they have done things in life, how they have achieved till now what they wanted to achieve, even in small doses. Again, thoughts, questions, where we are at this point. Anything that you would like to share? See the client's report. We can suppose they're doing something to keep it simple. Yep, absolutely. Even not one. There are sometimes there are therapists who use 0 instead of 1. But if the client says, "Oh, I'm at a 0," we still presuppose that they are doing something to keep it at 0, to stay afloat and not sink, to keep it at 0 and not go into negative. So we presuppose that they are doing something right. Back a couple of years back, when I started my private practice, it is still slow because I have a full-time IT sales job. So you can see that I'm in the office. But a couple of years back, when I started my private practice, I thought I had not done anything. I had not moved an inch. But then we were having this practice thing among colleagues, and Matt, I think some of you know Matt Cameron in New Zealand. We were having a practice session, and he asked me, like, on a scale of 1 to 10, and he used the scaling back then, on a scale of 1 to 10, where do you think you are from start? I mean, and with regards to starting your private practice. And I said, probably I'm at 2. When I actually thought I had done nothing. And then he asked me, okay, what makes it at a 2 and not a 1 or a 0? And then I said, oh, well, I've named my private practice. I've opened an Insta account. I have an email for my private practice, right? I have a logo for my private practice. And he was like, you have made some moves. And then it hit me that, oh yeah, it's not like I've not done anything. I have done some things. Ever heard a client say, oh, I didn't look at it that way till you asked me that question? It's an absolute thriller for me. It just like makes me so happy. It gets me excited when the client says, oh, I didn't look at it that way till you asked me that question. So, and that is possible only when we presuppose strength of our clients, when we absolutely believe that the client has done it. And it is right now, it is just a bump in the road for them, that just they're not very confident or very sure of getting across. And our job becomes to presuppose their strengths and facilitate that move, that removal of the clutter and moving forward for the client. So again, some of the benefits. I'm sure we have covered a lot of this as we have spoken today, but I think graceful judgment of human beings, not just clients. I think graceful judgment of human beings, fellow human beings, judging them by their best version, or bare minimum having the understanding, presupposing that every individual comes from a different environment, different situation, different upbringing. And if someone thinks the way they are thinking, someone speaks the way they are speaking, someone acts the way they are acting, they have a good reason for it. They have their own reasons for it. And if we have to judge at all, then we might as well presuppose, presume that they are doing their best at that given point in time, right? And that's as human beings, and yes, more obviously as therapists, as clinicians, it becomes our obligation to have that absolute mindset that the client or a person around us, and including ourselves, we got to give ourselves the credit. We got to show some love to ourselves, right? We are doing our best, or at least trying to do our best at any given point in time. And our thoughts and actions come because are the way they are because of our environment, not just who we are individually. And so the benefits of presupposition, presupposing strength, optimism, positivity is because it gives us that wide space to get clients to talk about with the possibilities, right? And not just from their standpoint. One thing I love about SF sessions is the convenience, for the want of a better word, that it gives us to bring in other people, what do you call, people in the client's life into the conversation. Like it could be the spouse, it could be the parents, the kids, siblings, friends, colleagues, whoever it is, or even inanimate objects, right? We back in the day when I was starting with SF, I used to like this question, like, if I were if I were a fly on the wall of the room you are in, what would I notice that tells me that your desired outcome is present? And that is an I mean, today I somehow I don't ask that question, but when I started off in SF, and SF is the only modality that I've learned. So that was a very interesting question that I used to like if I were a wall, or if I were the cat or the dog, or if I were the car, what would I notice about you that tells me that you are having a different day where your desired outcome is present, right? So again, we are presupposing, and it also gives the client the opportunity to look at things in a bit from a different angle. As I said, a prime example is people who have suicidal ideations. For them, when they have a problem that's like a mountain size, the only thing they can think of is probably suicide. And that's why they are thinking of it or even attempting it. But presupposing, right, strength and resilience gives them the opportunity. We pave the way for them to look at other options, other opportunities or possibilities other than the eventuality, right? So any questions? I mean, any thoughts that are like, what's on your mind as I speak, as you hear me go on this monologue? What's on your mind? Okay. Yes, Laura.
I'm loving the examples
Okay.
because presuppositions are one of those things that I know that I do probably more than I recognize that I'm doing. I know they're potent and I know that they're powerful, and trying to figure out how to catch them when I'm doing them and then look for opportunities. Like, I love the list that you had of questions that don't have presuppositions, and then questions with presuppositions. And that helped me to kind of get the sense of, oh, yeah, all the kinds of questions that I used to ask before solution focused presumed that it was just as equally as likely that there would be no progress, just equally as likely that they could be stuck, just as equally likely, and so anyhow, so I think that I'm making the transition more than I recognize, but that kind of looking for examples to be able to help me just kind of check.
Yes.
And
I think, yes, and I think what you're saying, Laura, is true to clients too. Is exactly what we are trying to do with our clients too. We are helping is not the right word, facilitating the process of the client to recognize that they have it in them. They have the strength. Right. We are presupposing it for them and then getting them to talk about the strengths that are already present there. They have done it. They have seen it. Right? They have crossed that bridge. They have crossed that hurdle. But probably today when they come into our office, they have a bigger problem than what they are used to. And so they think they can't get past it. And
I know that for myself, and certainly a lot of clients that I deal with, when the problem is in the vision, the awareness of the strengths and the resources, it's like people just kind of can't connect with that without some assistance and without the power of these presuppositions to be able to say, I know it's there. I know it's there. You made it to this conversation. Here's evidence that those strengths are there, and then asking questions to elicit that. But it's so easy to get out of touch with those strengths and those resources, to lose touch with them.
Right. Yes. Yes. By the way, hello, Erica. I see you're here. Thank you for joining us. So, yeah. And And I think it is present in every conversation that we have. And as I said, as therapists, we are obligated, not just as SF, I think irrespective of the modality we use, right? As therapists, we are obligated to help the clients or facilitate that process for the client to look at themselves and say, I've done it. Or get them to say that, oh, I didn't look at it that way till you asked me that. Thank you. And that is what gives us that that real satisfaction, if you will, right? So because I've just mentioned, like presuppositions gives the therapist too the confidence, right, to take the session in the right direction, because and it saves us from burnouts too, right? I mean, because traditional modality, we are presupposing problems. We are presupposing what you call commitment. But here we are presupposing strength. We are presupposing success stories. We are presupposing that the clients have already done it. And we are like, hey, tell me your story. Tell me your success story. How did you do it? We are in fact presupposing that the clients will tell us something that we can pick up, because we have problems. We are human beings. And we are presuming that, hey, you can tell me something that I could use for myself, even though we don't explicitly say it, right? So it reduces burnout too. And there's an interesting point. In the morning, I didn't talk about burnout, but this as I said, this is interesting, right? So so that is where, I mean, just to, yeah. So so the co-construction of, oops, I'm sorry. So I think that is again where presuppositions help in co-constructing client sessions, client language, right? Client description. So again, as I said, it is a linguistic tool that helps in co-constructing, because as Adam always says, while the client is the expert of their life, they know the problem, they know what they want, the solution or the outcome or the change that they want. We are the expert of the process, the modality. And it's a co-construction of description. It's a coming together of both expertise that works in tandem for the client to move in the right direction, right? And in order to do that, presupposing the strength, like presupposing that the session itself is the intervention. We are not building an intervention as part of as a result of the session, but the session, the questions in itself is the intervention, right? We are presupposing that when the client talks about what they have done, the strengths they have used, resources they have used, about other significant others, telling them about good things about them, we are presupposing that the client is listening to themselves talk about what they have already done, and then give them that eureka moment, saying, oh, I've already done it. I can just reuse it. It's a reusable formula that they can use in their life and get past the immediate issues that they have and have a long-lasting outcome be present in their life, right? So we are presupposing that the client will listen to themselves. So I think at this time I'll stop. I think I'm at the fag end of my presentation. Looks like I still have 40 minutes to go. I don't know, I kind of breezed through, but yeah, I think the floor is now open for discussions, questions, thoughts. We can argue, debate. For instance, like in the morning, Alan brought up a very interesting point, like while it's good to presuppose, with what force, like, would you be presumptive? Wherein you write the risk of forcing the presumption on them, the presupposition on the client, right? So, and that is an interesting thought, because again, clients come from different backgrounds, different environments, different problems, and sometimes it is easy for us to presume strength where the client might not be in a position to receive it. So then it needs a balancing, right? It needs to mellow, and we need to balance. We need to, as Aisha said in her presentation, we got to read the room, read our client, understand. I mean, especially if we are in what do you call, face to face. While in SF, we claim that body language doesn't really matter much. I believe it does. So to mirror a client, to lean forward or take a step back and mirror the client's body language, make them feel comfortable, empathize. I think those are all basic premises of basic tenets of what you call psychological counseling, no matter what modality we use. And we got to bring that in, and then presume and use presuppositions in the right way with our clients. So that was an interesting thought that came up in the morning when I presented. So yeah, any interesting thoughts or questions that now that the floor is open. Okay. Either I did a shoddy job or I did a really great job.
Well, it's worth to presuppose, to have a proposition that is okay. I like this conversation about language. Thank you very much. Yes, and it's how it helps co-construct the reality of the session. Thank you.
And could anyone give us a few examples of where you thought presupposition or presuming helped help the client recognize their own strengths, like something that stands out, that's interesting?
But there's
I have a,
Oops, I'm sorry.
I'm sorry. It's Deborah. I have a comment and a question, actually an answer, but I had the question first, but the answer,
Sure.
The presupposition that seems to, it's like magic and wonderful, is what do you know about yourself that tells you X, Y, Z? And so that leads to my question to you is, what are some of your favorite formulations for presuppositions? I mean, that's one of mine, for instance.
Okay. I mean, now that you put me in the spot, but I think, yes, the one that you just mentioned, like, what do you know about yourself? Because it's easy to say that I want to change, right? It's like going to the gym. We start with all the enthusiasm in the world. We go the first day, the second day, then the fourth day, then the seventh day, and then we don't go. So it is important for us and for the client, right, for us to know what they know about themselves, that lets them know they can sustain and grow the desired outcome, which means we are from our standpoint as clinicians, we are presupposing that they know their own strengths and they know that they have done it and they can do it again. But from a client standpoint, it also means that they get to listen to themselves talk about their own strengths or where they get that strength from. Another important and
What can I take
interesting.
up?
I'm sorry.
3 things? 4 things?
Did I hear someone speak? Okay. So
I heard it too, but I don't know.
Yeah. So the other question, again, as you asked that question, Deborah, the other question that pops up to my mind is, where did you learn, or from whom did you learn that a particular trait was important to you? For, like, say, integrity. Or I recently had, a couple of months back, I had a client, and we were talking about what she wants and all that, and she said, I want to leave a legacy, right, for my kids, or the way I live my life, leave a legacy. And I mean, this question just sprung up, and I asked her, like, how did you know? How do you know? When did you know that leaving a legacy was important to you? From where? From whom did you learn that? And she said, I probably learned it from my mom, because she had a difficult life, and yet she lived a life that I could follow with some values. She had a value system that family was important. Though my dad wasn't around, she took that extra care to bring me up, educate me. She followed a value system in her life, despite the troubles that she had in her life. And I think I learned it from her, that for me, leaving a legacy is important. So again, I'm presupposing that they have a story, they have a backstory connected to what they want, right? And only if I presuppose and have absolute belief that they have had a successful past, they have a successful backstory, will I ask that question, right? So those are a couple of questions that I could think of. Deborah, did I mean, kind of answer your question, or did I go all over the place? I always have that doubt whether I answer the question. So yeah. And you had a point to make after the question. So yes, please.
I think there's another example of presupposition in Bruges model in European solution focus. It's Lux Isabert's book. It is called decrystallization. And I think I found it in some English books as partializing. I don't know if I say it correctly.
Oh.
It means, for example, when the client says, I hate myself, and we can put it into smaller parts and say, okay, that's the way you think about it now. So we change to some kind of preposition, I think. Presupposition, sorry, I think we change the statement into something which is more changeable.
Right.
You can put some kind of movement into it.
Okay. Yeah. And I believe that is probably a good place where we could use the instead question. So, okay, you hate yourself today. Now, how would you rather rather think of yourself or feel about yourself instead, right? I mean, so we are presupposing that though you say that, right? And just as you say that, Magdalena, okay, Magdalena. It brings up something interesting, right? That we do not also take everything at face value that a client says, right? Exactly. That's also a presupposition that we do not.
Exactly.
It's the language, the non-presuppositional language that comes from the client. We do not take everything at face value. When a client says, I hate myself, we do not believe that. We do not take that presupposition, right? We do not even consider that as a presupposition. Rather, we are presupposing and asking instead, how would you like to view yourself?
Yeah.
Because then we are turning the conversation around to what the client would really, what the client would really like to have or like to view themselves like. So again, we do not take everything at face value that the client
Exactly.
says, right?
Yeah. Yeah.
Some client says, "Oh, I'm a failure." What do? I'm a doctor. For heaven's sake, how did you become a doctor then? If you're a failure, right? I mean, I had a client, right? She's today, she has completed her master's. She's a doctor. She's a pediatrician. So you do your undergrad in India here. You do the undergrad first, and then you do your PG, your postgrad, and you specialize in an area. So we had a session, and she had a lot of unfinished business that you typically hear the word unfinished business, especially in transaction analysis. So she had a lot of like childhood trauma and sibling issues and parental issues and all that. At one point in time, and this was like 10-15 minutes before the end of the session, I asked her, like, despite the problems that you have had in your life, despite the childhood trauma that you have come across and got past, how on earth did you know that you could become a doctor? And for the next 15 minutes, she went blank. She didn't, because no one had asked that question to her. I mean, she had a lot of stories to elicit her strengths and how her friends would tell her that she had those strengths and all that. But when I asked her, like, how did you know, despite all the trauma that you had, how did you know that you were strong enough that you one day could become a doctor? For God's sake, that's a 5-year course plus 1 year of house surgency to become a doctor, right? And then, and at that point in time, she was preparing for her entrance exams for a PG course, for a postgrad course to become a pediatrician. And she was like, for the next 15 minutes, and I was in fact talking about that during the Aisha session about silence. It was awkward silence for 15 minutes that I had to endure as a therapist. But I didn't have a choice because she didn't give me an answer to ask another question. So 15 minutes, we were sat in awkward silence. But we sat in that awkward silence because I presupposed, right, that she had something, she had some strength, she had some resource that probably even she didn't think of before I asked the question, that led her to become a doctor despite everything that she went through. I ended the session saying, okay, we are at the end of the session. You can keep thinking of the question and find answers for yourself. I'm fine, and go ahead. Right. So glad that today she has finished her master's and she's become a pediatrician. But again, presupposition of strength is absolutely key as a therapist for us.
One of the ways that because I think kind of what you're pointing out, or at least is my experience, is that people come in presuming their lack of strength, lack of resources, those are the presuppositions that they come in with.
Mm.
And I think about Eliot saying, don't believe them, believe in them.
Right.
But don't believe that image of themselves.
Yes.
And one of the things that oftentimes when I'll ask people, how did you do that? How did you manage to do that? Oftentimes people will say, well, I had no choice. Of course, I'm going to get out of bed even when I'm depressed to take care of my kids. They're kids.
Mm-hmm.
And what I'm learning to say is to say, let me tell you all the people I talk to who don't. Let me tell you the people who these resourceful things that you do, these evidence of your resourcefulness that you take for granted. Let me tell you, that's not something to be taken for granted. People don't do that. People make terrible decisions. People don't push themselves, not even for their children. And sometimes spinning that out helps to kind of point out the fact that this is an accomplishment. This is a statement. So anyhow, so as you were talking, that was just one of the things that I was thinking about in terms of one of the ways in which I work with presuppositions with people.
Yep.
It took a while for me to unlearn my willingness to believe their inability. Yeah.
Right.
And I love your commitment to that knowledge that she's in front of you. She's made it through all this stuff towards the medical degree, and the willingness to say, I will sit in silence. Because here it is, sitting between us. And until you have something to say, I'm willing to sit with you in silence and just let it sit between us as evidence that there's more than you see in yourself.
Yeah, I mean, yeah, and it was tough. I'm not someone who likes silence, especially in this kind of conversation. But then, yeah, I mean, I need something to go on. So I presume that she was thinking. Again, that's another presupposition that's very important. That when we ask the question, we have set the ball rolling of their thoughts, of the train of thoughts, right? We are when we ask what are your best hopes, and the client says I don't know, we are presupposing that that is a large space of possibilities.
Right.
We do not, as you said, we do not take their answer of I don't know at face value and say, oh, you don't know, okay. How can I help then? What advice can I give you? No, we don't do that. We presuppose that it's just that the client hasn't thought of it that way, and their thoughts have started running. The moment we ask, what are your best hopes? And what difference would it make to you? We have got their thoughts ringing, right? And we presuppose that. We presuppose that the client has started thinking even in silence. Right?
Yeah.
We've got some more time. Or I don't know what I was thinking when I asked for 90 minutes. Yes, so just a request to Laura. I believe you're recording, so I in fact forgot to record the session for myself. So not you, Laura. Laura Fathom, is that you? Oh, okay. Yeah, I believe you're recording. So if I may have a copy of the recording, that'd be great. Yeah. So yes, we have. Yeah, you could send it to me or email and connect with me over Insta. So that's my Insta page. That's my name of my private practice, Happy Minds Cafe.